Episode 2 of the What's Cookin' podcast. Have you guys ever wondered why I'm a Chargers fan? Have you ever wondered what it's like to be a Chargers fan? We're going to get into that today. If you don't want to listen to that, you'd rather listen to the current events on the 4 topics, look in the description. I'll have the time cards posted there. Here we go! What's cooking, everyone? We are back and ready to roll for episode 2 of the What's Cooking podcast. Today we have some interesting stories. We have some memories to share. But first, before we get into the main part of the content for today, I gotta give you guys a shout out, man. I am impressed. I am blown away with the overwhelming amount of support I've received on all the social media posts I've put out about episode 1. I really didn't know what to expect when I released the first episode, when I made all these social media posts talking about my ideas, my plans, my thoughts. You guys really showed up in the comments. You really showed up in my DMs. I appreciate everybody that's given me some positive feedback. Some people have given me some constructive criticism, which is very much welcome. I'm always trying to improve. That's one of the main points of this entire podcast. I want to get better at speaking. I want to get better at communicating. This podcast is going to do exactly that for me, so that is wonderful. I am proud to present that we have at least 7 people who reached out to me on day 1 who are interested in coming on the podcast at some point. Guys, that's insane. That is unbelievable. I never would have dreamed that we would have so much support, so much willingness to join on the first day. Man, this is getting me excited. I'm ready to roll. I'm ready to... Woo-wee. I'll tell you what, man. When you take a step outside of your comfort zone, when you go and stretch yourself and you set goals and you try new things, man, it's not easy. And I'll tell you what, this is something new that I've never really dipped my foot into before. But the way you guys responded, man, I'm ready to go. I'm pumped up. I'm ready to dive in. One quick reminder before we set sail on today's adventure. I've made it easy for you guys to stay connected with the podcast, What's Cookin', if you go to what's_cookin' on Twitter or Instagram. I have a link in my bio that uses Linktree. Very useful app, very useful service. All the social media links, all the podcast links, all the content I'll be creating is going to be linked within the Linktree in the bio of my Instagram and Twitter. So go check it out. Make sure you find whatever platform you prefer to listen on. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. Those are the big 3. Those are what I'm on right now. You're going to be able to listen either one of those ways going forward. And it's all going to be in one convenient location that's in the bio of my social medias. All right, the self-promotion is done. Today's episode, we're going to be talking sports. We're going to be talking NFL. We're going to be talking Chargers. Why am I a Chargers fan? I was born in Iowa. I grew up in Cedar Rapids. How is it possible for me to become a fan of the NFL team that is statistically the furthest distance away from me? In order to answer this question, we need to hop into our time machine and travel back to the year 2006. It's summertime in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. I am at the ripe young age of 7 years old, and the Cook family decides to take a vacation to San Diego, California. And to make matters even more interesting, the week before we decided to leave on this vacation, I was at my neighbor's backyard, bouncing on a trampoline. It was about 8 p.m. Nighttime was upon us. It was very dark outside. Tried to do a flip that I was very much not ready to do. Fell off the trampoline and broke my arm. We were worried that this might ruin the vacation, but the doctors gave me a sling for my arm. I strapped it on and I said, "Boys, the show must go on." The Cook family made it to San Diego. Now, if you remember being 7 years old, this is the prime era for going into swimming pools when you're on a vacation. You want to be in the pool as much as you can. So I was really worried that having a sling, having a broken arm, this was going to destroy my chances of being in a pool on vacation. But thankfully, my parents came in clutch. They got a sling cover that was waterproof, express shipped to the hotel in San Diego. We got there on time. We got that puppy strapped up. We got it loaded on. And I was able to swim in the pool as much as I wanted to, which was very clutch. Very appreciative of that. I have a very oddly specific memory of me with the sling cover on, standing in the pool at night in San Diego, watching the premiere of the movie Herbie Fully Loaded. Now, you probably think I'm getting off track here, but listen, this all comes full circle in the end. It's a very crucial part of the story. Anyways, the rest of the vacation was very enjoyable. Had a great time. We went to my dad's friend's house in San Diego. Very lovely house. A lot of stuff to do in the backyard. Very entertaining. For a 7-year-old, this was a peak experience. So we get back to Iowa. Life carries on as usual. Young Brandon is heading into first grade at this time. I start paying more attention to professional sports around this time. Keep in mind, we don't have a professional sports team in Iowa, so there's really no local team for me to cheer for in the state. I could have chosen a local team like the Bears or the Chiefs or the Vikings or Packers, but I just got back from a vacation to an excellent city who had an NFL team, and I started watching football games of a certain team that had these nice blue uniforms and a guy with number 21 on the back of his jersey who was making guys miss right and left, ended up winning the NFL MVP that year. He's wearing the lightning bolts on his jersey. It all came together. LaDainian Tomlinson of the Chargers, NFL MVP. It was a done deal at that point. There was really no decision to be made. I was a Chargers fan, created right then and there, and that's how it all began. With the amount of young, talented players the Chargers had at this point, I thought I was setting myself up for years of success, Super Bowls, deep playoff runs, and a lot of excitement to come. However, I had little to no idea what I had just gotten myself into. Listen to this. First year of being a fan, which was the 2006-2007 season. Chargers finished 14-2. LT wins the MVP. First round bye in the playoffs. We get to wait and see who our opponent is. Turns out it's Tom Brady and the New England Patriots. Nothing could go wrong here, right? Chargers did start the game off strong. We led most of the way. Fourth quarter comes around. We got about 6 minutes left to go. Patriots have the ball. They're around midfield. We get them in a 4th and 5 situation. And keep in mind, 4th down on defense. This means you can swat the ball, you can deflect it, you can break up a pass. An incomplete pass will give you the ball automatically. So with that in mind, the Patriots drop back to pass. They throw it. The Chargers intercept the ball. It's Marlon McCree, one of our safeties, picks off Tom Brady. Instead of going down immediately to ensure that we have the possession, Marlon McCree tries to reverse fields, run sideways across the field for a longer return. He ends up getting stripped, fumbles the ball, and the Patriots recover for a first down. This is devastating. This is mind-blowing. I cannot believe that this happened. We could have batted the ball down to get a free incomplete pass and a possession, but no. We make these stupid mistakes time and time again. Tom Brady gets the ball back. Patriots drive down and score a touchdown. Of course. Chargers get the ball back after this. We're tied up at 21 at this point. Chargers are stopped on the next drive. We're forced to punt. Patriots offense comes back out. They drive down the field. They kick a field goal with about a minute left to go. That means they took the lead 24-21. Chargers get the ball back. We do put together quite a bit of a drive. Set up Nate Kading for a 54-yard field goal, which is a tough field goal, but it's definitely makeable in the NFL. Nate Kading misses the field goal as time expires. Patriots win 24-21, and the Chargers are eliminated from the playoffs. And in the offseason, we decide to fire our head coach, Marty Schottenheimer, after he just had a 14-3 record. One of the most boneheaded decisions in an organization that is filled with boneheaded decisions. This firing of Coach Marty Schottenheimer would lead to a devastating streak of misfortunes year after year that I had to live through, and I'm going to share some of the highlights with you guys right now, some of the pains that I've suffered, some of the devastating losses we have taken over the years. All right, the following season comes around. The Chargers bring back most of our roster, which I will credit them for because we had a great young nucleus at the time. We put together an 11-5 regular season record, AFC West champions, and let me just say, I miss the days when the Chargers could just pump out divisional champions like this, because we have not had a divisional championship since 2009. So an 11-5 record, that means we're going to the playoffs. We find ourselves in the wild card this year against the Titans, and we find a way to take them down 17-6. This is the Chargers' first playoff win since 1994. That's a 13-year drought. So kudos to us. Well done. Next up, divisional round versus the number 2 seed Colts. LaDainian Tomlinson unfortunately has to leave the game in the second quarter. He had a knee injury. Phillip Rivers also left the game in the third quarter. He suffered a torn ACL. So that means second-string quarterback Billy Volek comes in, and he finds a way to rally the troops to a 28-24 victory. That means the Chargers are off to the AFC Championship game, where our opponent is the number 1 seed New England Patriots that are 18-0. Guys, you can't make this up, man. Our luck is just, I don't even know what to say, man. At least last year, it was a fair fight. We had all of our players pretty much healthy to play. This year, we had Phillip Rivers coming off of a torn ACL in the previous game. LaDainian Tomlinson has an injured right knee, attempts to play in the game, but he has to leave halfway through. Antonio Gates also has a dislocated toe, so he's not going to be very effective. Phillip Rivers with that torn ACL, you know what? He decides to play anyways. Plays the entire game on a torn ACL. That is the definition of toughness, Iron Man, heroic effort. However, the odds were stacked against us, and there wasn't much we could do. We had to kick 4 field goals in the red zone. Didn't really move the ball very much. The whole offense is pretty much banged up at this point. And Tom Brady and the Patriots end up winning the game 21-12. And you know what's funny about this? Not only did the Patriots beat us this year, not only did the Patriots beat us last year, that's 2008 and 2007 playoffs, but in both of these games, Tom Brady threw 3 interceptions and still found a way to win. I don't know if that's a great supporting cast by the Patriots, or I don't know if that's missed opportunities by the Chargers, but you got to think it's a little bit of both, and it's very disappointing. On to the next season. It's 2008. We see a bit of a dip in performance from the Chargers in the regular season this year, only finishing at an 8-8 regular season record. 7 of our 8 losses this year were one-possession games, and you'll see that becomes a common theme for the Chargers in the next decade or so. But somehow with an 8-8 record, that's good enough to get us an AFC West championship. So that means we're off to the playoffs again. Unfortunately, once again, LaDainian Tomlinson injured his groin this time in our final regular season game. That's going to affect him going into the playoffs. We're going to be matched up against the number 5 seed Colts with Peyton Manning and company. This was a breakout game for the young running back, the lightning bug, Darren Sproles. He had 328 all-purpose yards and 2 touchdowns, including the game winner in overtime to take down Peyton Manning and the Colts in the wild card round. This is one of the most fun games I remember watching. Little lightning bug, Mr. Darren Sproles, was untouchable. You couldn't find him. You couldn't tackle him. He was running all over the place. Next round, it's the number 2 seed Pittsburgh Steelers. And guys, I have bad news for you. The Chargers are going to Charger this one away. Here's some of the key moments from this game. The Chargers allowed a 65-yard punt return for a touchdown. Great job, special teams. In the third quarter, we ran 1 offensive play. This came after a 63-yard kickoff return by Darren Sproles, and on the ensuing play, we were intercepted. And I have to give the Steelers credit because they managed the clock very well in order to force us to only run 1 offensive play and an entire quarter of an NFL game. Later on, we found that there was a 44-yard pass interference penalty in the end zone by Eric Weddle. So that's pretty much just giving them free yards, almost half the field right there on that penalty. We did put up a little bit of a fight towards the end of the game, but it was too little too late. The Steelers move on, beating the Chargers 35-24. By this point, you should be able to recognize a pattern here. The Chargers usually have a lot of talent, a lot of great players, a lot of potential. Somehow we find a way to really just throw it all down the drain. So these next couple seasons, I'm going to jump to the point here and make this pretty quick. 2009 regular season, 13-3 record for the Chargers, AFC West champions. Great job, guys. First round bye means we get to wait around for a week and see who our opponent is. Turns out that's the number 5 seed Jets. So we line up and play the Jets. Going into the game, I like my chances knowing that the Jets are coached by Rex Ryan and their quarterback is Mark Sanchez. Those two did not have a whole lot of success in their career, so I thought we would have a good chance of winning this game. This one was one of those low-scoring, grinded-out games. We had a lot of close moments. Really, the storyline here is Nate Kading, who has been usually a great kicker. Nate, you went to Iowa. You're a Hawkeye man. I love you, buddy, but you missed 3 field goals in this game, and we ended up losing the game by 3. So that was just a killer. Really just screwed the pooch there. To make matters worse, this offseason was the time when the Chargers released my favorite player of all time, running back LaDainian Tomlinson. And to make matters even worse, LT went and joined the team that we just lost to, the New York Jets. Next season, 2010. A season that summarizes the Chargers very well. We were number 1 in the NFL in total offensive yards gained. We were number 1 in the NFL in total defensive yards allowed. That means we outgained every other team, and our defense held every other team to the least amount of yards in the same season. Must have been a really good team, right? Well, we went 9-7 and we missed the playoffs. That means our special teams single-handedly screwed us over. Fun fact, in the NFL that season, there were 12 punts that got blocked. 4 of those were from the Chargers. 33% of the punts blocked in the league were from the Chargers. Well done, guys. The following 4 seasons, that's 2011, 12, 13, 14, 15, don't have a whole lot to share. This is a mediocre period for the Chargers. We would finish 8-8, 9-7, 7-9, something like that. Middle of the pack. I think we won 1 playoff game in 2013 against the Bengals, but other than that, don't have a whole lot to report to you guys. Just more disappointment, more ho-hum, injuries, and mediocrity. But there's something cool to note. 2015, my sophomore year of high school, the Cook family made the trek up north to watch the Chargers take on the Minnesota Vikings. This was the point where the Vikings were temporarily relocated to play at TCF Bank Stadium, where the Minnesota Gophers usually play. Pretty cool scenery there, pretty cool area. It was great weather, so we got lucky there in Minnesota. You never really know what to expect. Also, I had a high school classmate of mine attending this game. He was a Vikings fan, and another reason we were there is that my brother, who came along with us, was also a Vikings fan. So I was outnumbered like usual as a Chargers fan in Iowa or a Chargers fan in the Midwest. Always against the odds, but we persevere. We try our best. We watched the Vikings take on the Chargers. Vikings had the more eventful day that day. I can recall watching Adrian Peterson have about a 30-yard touchdown run in which he absolutely steamrolled Eric Weddle. That was not fun. Also watched Chad Greenway return an interception for about 90 yards for a touchdown. That was not very fun to watch. However, I witnessed one of the great plays in Charger history, in my opinion anyways, because it was one of the coolest plays I've seen live at an NFL game. This came when Phillip Rivers fired a ball deep left side. Keenan Allen caught it, and right as he made the catch, 2 Vikings defenders were closing in on him. Keenan Allen jukes to the right. Both of the Vikings defenders crash into each other, and Keenan Allen gets away free. He dances his way into the end zone, and one of the Vikings players gets hurt while he's crashing into his own teammate. Keenan Allen one of the smoothest receivers, one of the best route runners, the route technician that he is. Not the fastest guy, but he will show up on the stat sheet week in and week out. That play was outstanding. Just to give you guys the full effect, I'm going to insert the clip from this play, and you're going to be able to listen to some of the crowd noise and the announcers that made this moment even more special.
2nd and 10. Rivers in the pocket. Rivers delivers. It's Keenan Allen for the touchdown. Phillip Rivers to Allen, and that quiets the crowd in Minneapolis. 34 yards. Injured player is Xavier Rhodes, the talented corner for Minnesota.
Well, I hate to repeat myself, but I'm going to go ahead and say you can never count out number 17. Give him a chance to move this team. It looked like things were absolutely as dire as they could possibly be for San Diego, with a 3rd and 18 from their own 12. Hits Floyd for 39 and then finds Allen behind the secondary and a walk-in touchdown. 5 for 7 on the drive for 94 yards for Phillip Rivers. Awesome.
Man, that gets me fired up. In the midst of a 4-12 season, I have that one bright spot to look back on, and I get to tell people, yep, I watched that happen live. We move on to 2016, which is a year filled with injuries. So many injuries that I have to go rapid fire, announcing each one, so fasten your seatbelts, we're about to go on a ride. Wide receiver Stevie Johnson has a season-ending torn meniscus in practice. Tight end Jeff Cumberland has a season-ending torn Achilles in the preseason. Defensive end Sean Lissamore has a season-ending shoulder injury in preseason. Running back Brandon Oliver has a season-ending torn Achilles in preseason. Our center Chris Watt had a season-ending injury in preseason. Week 1, the Chargers had Keenan Allen tore his ACL, and we also blew a 17-point lead in the fourth quarter. Week 2, Danny Woodhead tears his ACL. Week 3, Manti Te'o torn his meniscus. Week 4, Jason Verrett tore his ACL. Week 4, Nick DeZubner had a season-ending knee injury. There were also injuries to less important players, but I wanted to give you guys the most impactful injuries that hurt us the most. And to put the cherry on top, the Chargers in Week 16 lost to the Browns. This was the year where the Browns went 1-15, and the previous season they had gone 0-16. So that means in the last 2 seasons, the Browns had 1 win, and that was against the Chargers. Well done, guys. At the end of this season, we fired our head coach, Mike McCoy, and this is an important time in Chargers history. This is when the team relocated from San Diego to Los Angeles. I think I speak for all Chargers fans when I say none of us wanted to move to LA. We like what we had going in San Diego. Yes, our stadium was getting old, but I feel like we could have rallied some support and got a deal done. Tried to make some renovations, tried to plan for a new construction project or something to keep the Chargers where they belong in San Diego. Unfortunately, our owner, Dean Spanos, and his infinite wisdom decide to move us over to LA, where we leave most of our fans behind, and we play in a soccer stadium for a few years. StubHub Arena, Dignity Sports Health Park, whatever you want to call it. This is not something that the fans really enjoyed. This is not something that helped our team land free agents. It's really a liability in every sense of the word. 2017 season, let's give you some fun highlights here. A lot of injuries, a lot of the same of the usual stuff for the Chargers. We finished 9-7. In week 8, there's a great moment where Travis Benjamin muffed a punt return. He picked it up and ran backwards and got tackled in the end zone for his safety. That's a very interesting play. Chargers ended up losing that game by 1 possession, so that really didn't help us there. Week 11, actually a bright spot for us. The Chargers played against Bills quarterback Nathan Peterman. We picked him off 5 times, and we ended up winning by 30. However, later in the season, the Chargers and the Bills both finished 9-7, but due to the tiebreakers in the NFL, the Bills made the playoffs and not the Chargers. So that means the team that we beat by 30 points this year had the same record as us, and they made the playoffs and we didn't. So that was a little frustrating, but There's not much you can do. You gotta win more games if you want the outright entrance into the playoffs, and there's nothing we could complain about, I guess. One other fun fact for that season, the Chargers used 5 different kickers in the 2017 season. We had Young Ho Koo, Nick Novak, Drew Kaiser, who was our punter. He filled in one game, and he had the great moment on the sideline where he was warming up and he was kicking into the kicking net, and he completely missed the net in warm-ups, so that was cool. We also had Travis Coons and Nick Rose rounding out the lineup for the kickers that year. I don't have a great explanation for what happened in the 2018 season. This is like the Chargers football team in the upside down of Stranger Things. This is like the exact opposite of what you would expect. The Chargers, 2018, we finished 12-4. We were winning all of our close games, most of our one-possession games this year. We found a way in the end of the game to rally the troops, to make the necessary plays, and to finish these games out. Unfortunately, we did finish second in the AFC West. The Chiefs also had a 12-4 record, but we made the playoffs. We made the wild card round. We were facing off against Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. We had a 23-3 lead in the fourth quarter, and then Lamar started turning it on. Ravens started scoring some touchdowns, pulling in close. I thought, oh boy, here we go again. I've seen this movie before. But thankfully, we had a clutch strip sack from Uchenna Nwosu that sealed the game, got the fumble recovery. Chargers able to move on, able to weather the storm, win the wild card playoff game. Guess who we're playing in the next round? I'll give you 5 seconds to guess who we're playing in the next round. Time's up. If you had Tom Brady and the New England Patriots, you are absolutely correct. The Chargers, having one of the great seasons of the decade, find a way to get matched up against Tom Brady and the Patriots. The Patriots come out, and all they do is they score touchdowns on their first 5 possessions. That means they're leading 35-7 at halftime. This is complete devastation. This is poverty. This is disappointment at its best. The Chargers, in the second half, they have a few garbage time touchdowns. We have a few pity points, but in the end, we're losing, and we're losing big to the Patriots. Yes, the Patriots again. This is an interesting time for the Chargers fan base because we hired head coach Anthony Lynn the season before in 2017. He led us to a 9-7 regular season record, followed by a 12-4 regular season record and a playoff win. So we have a lot of confidence in Anthony Lynn. We think he might be the next coach for decades to come. We are very high on him. We think that he will lead us to the promised land. But 2019 was a reality check, unfortunately. The Chargers do what they do best. They lose a lot of close games. They have a lot of injuries. They have a lot of mistakes. 2019 finished 5-11. At the conclusion of the 2019 season, this was a key offseason for the Chargers going into the 2020 year. There were some rumblings on social media that Phillip Rivers might be moving on. I think some people found that he had plans to sell his house and move his family elsewhere, and people were thinking that this might be the end for Phillip Rivers in LA. This could be his last time as a Charger, and turns out they were correct because Phillip moved on. He got signed by the Indianapolis Colts, and the Chargers quickly realized that we needed to get a quarterback, and we needed to get a quarterback fast. Thankfully, one of the rare times where this helped us, having a 5-11 record that year, the Chargers had the number 6 pick in the 2020 NFL Draft. This was a solid quarterback class, let me tell you. We had Joe Burrow, we had Tua Tagovailoa, we had Justin Herbert, and Jordan Love all were taken in the first round. Very thankful that the Chargers were very poor the season before leading up to this when we needed a quarterback because we struck when the iron was hot. And I have a memory of watching the Rose Bowl. It was Oregon versus Wisconsin. As a Big Ten fan, as an Iowa fan, I was kind of leaning for Wisconsin, but watching Justin Herbert, watching the Oregon Ducks move the ball the way they did, even though Herbert didn't have a great passing game, he found a way to get it done on the ground. He ran in for 3 touchdowns in that one Rose Bowl game, and he willed the Oregon Ducks to victory. And at that point, my eyes were opened. I really became a Justin Herbert fan at that point in time. He really popped in that game, even though most things weren't going his way. He found a way to get it done on the ground. I thought that the Chargers would have a great opportunity to pick up Herbert. We might need to trade up, I thought, because the Dolphins were in front of us. They needed a quarterback. The Bengals were in front of us. Most people thought that the Bengals would take Joe Burrow, and they were right because they did with a number 1 overall pick. But I really thought that the Dolphins, after seeing what Justin Herbert did, they would go and they would take him with a number 5 overall pick. Tua Tagovailoa had shown flashes of greatness. He had that really nice pass into the end zone to win the championship game. But he had that season-ending injury coming into the draft. He had a hip problem, There were some major concerns about him and his mobility and his throwing motion. And even though he showed promise, there was just that question mark hanging over him. Would he be able to get back to that same level? And I really thought, looking at Justin Herbert, I didn't see many flaws in his game. I didn't see many weaknesses. He's like 6'6", 236. He can move, he can throw, he has a cannon for an arm, and he can run like the wind. This is something that the Chargers have been wanting for a long time. That Phillip Rivers, not really a guy known for his speed. We wanted a guy that can move around. We wanted a guy that could throw it deep. And Justin Herbert landing in our lap at the number 6 pick might be the greatest moment that we could have ever asked for, because he has taken our organization to the next level. He has shown promise. He has risen up the ranks very quickly. And I think that he is the guy to get it done for the Chargers. I think that he will be the one to bring us our first Super Bowl. And I'm very glad that we chose him and we protected him by upgrading our offensive line. And man, it's a great time to be a Charger looking forward into the future. If you thought the Chargers were a disastrous team up until this point, I want you to listen to the 2020 NFL season for the Chargers. Justin Herbert is the second string quarterback going into the year. Tyrod Taylor is the starting QB. That is a decision I don't think we should have made. I think that was largely Anthony Lynn leaning towards Tyrod. I think Herbert should have had the job right off the bat, but I couldn't complain after week 1. The Chargers got the job done. We beat the Cincinnati Bengals. We're moving on 1-0. Week 2, we face off against the Kansas City Chiefs. Shortly before the game begins, Tyrod Taylor is given a pain-killing injection in attempt to help his rib cage, I believe, recover from some pain. The doctor administers the shot, and it's an unsuccessful puncture, apparently. And Tyrod Taylor has a punctured lung. He's not able to play. Justin Herbert had not taken the number 1 reps in the practice leading up to this week. He's a rookie coming in. He didn't have a full offseason due to COVID. He's being thrown into the fire. Anthony Lynn tells him about 20 seconds before kickoff that he's going to be starting, and the Chargers receive the kickoff and they throw Herbert out there into the fire. This is a real sink or swim moment for Justin Herbert. He could have done a bad job and the Chargers could have moved right back to Tyrod Taylor. I could see that happening. Maybe he wasn't ready. Maybe the rookie was too young. He was too inexperienced. Those thoughts never crossed our mind because we watched Justin Herbert take the Chargers down the field on the opening drive, and he ran the ball into the end zone himself. That was an incredible drive. Some of the best offense the Chargers had seen in years. This was a back-and-forth game after that moment. The Chiefs brought it back, and we went into overtime. Chargers have the ball first. Unfortunately, we go 3-and-out and punt it away. The Chiefs get the ball. They drive down the field, and they are able to rely on the leg of Harrison Butker because he made a game-winning 58-yard field goal in overtime to take down the Chargers, and this was complete devastation in my mind. After the game, Anthony Lynn makes one of the most boneheaded comments of all time. He says that there's a lot that we didn't get done on the field today. Justin is a backup for a reason. Our own head coach called our quarterback a backup for a reason. This one really got under my skin since I wanted Herbert to be starting from the jump, and Herbert had one of the best games I had seen from a rookie quarterback debut after filling in for a quarterback's punctured lung 10 seconds before the game I have ever seen. And I know that situation has only happened probably one time in NFL history, but Herbert handled it the best he could, and man, was I excited to watch him in the games coming forward. Thankfully, Herbert did not give the starting job back the rest of the way. He was starting the rest of the season. Around mid-year, Anthony Lynn announces Herbert's going to be starting the rest of the way. He come to his senses finally. Unfortunately, Herbert is not great enough to overcome the Chargers in 2020. Week 3, Chargers lose to the Panthers. We almost had a last-second lateral between Keenan Allen and Austin Eckler. There was a wide open gap. If we would have had a clean exchange there, I think we could have had a touchdown, but didn't work out. Next week, we head over to the Buccaneers, where we had a 24-7 lead. Right before halftime, we end up fumbling. They score a touchdown. We find a way to blow our 24-7 lead. Buccaneers end up winning. The next week after that, week 5, we had a 20-3 lead against the Saints. We blew that one away. We lost it in overtime. Later in the year, week 8, we had a 24-3 lead on the Broncos. We blew that one away. We lost on a last-second touchdown there. Week 12, this is a very funny moment. And by funny, it's funny in a very sad way. The Chargers are playing the Bills, and we had a deep completion over the middle at the end of the game. Chargers are trying to hurry up because I don't think we had any timeouts left. The play call is for Herbert to sneak it, apparently, but somewhere along the line there was a miss in communication. Herbert hikes the ball, and the offensive line is in pass protection, so they're dropping back. They're shuffling backward, trying to protect Herbert while he throws the ball. However, Herbert did a QB sneak where he runs straight forward, and all you see is our offensive line moving backward and Herbert moving forward at the same time. We get stuffed at the line for no gain, and the game ends on that play. So that looked very disorganized. Anthony Lynn, at that point, I think he should have been fired right after that game. Maybe even sooner, if you want to be honest. But definitely right then and there, he did not deserve to have a job after that. But I think the way the Chargers are, Tom Telesco at GM and our organization, we like to ride it out until the season's over and then find somebody in the offseason. I don't think that we'll have a situation where we fire someone mid-season unless it's like a really bad scandal. So that's just the way our organizations run. Anthony Lynn kept his job until the end of the year. There was a moment week 13, well, the whole game, week 13, we're playing the Patriots. We lose 45-0 to the Patriots led by Cam Newton. That should never happen. We had a punt that was blocked, the punt was returned for a touchdown by Gunnar Olszewski, and then we also had a field goal that was blocked and returned for a touchdown right before halftime. 45-0 defeat. Cam Newton only passed for 69 yards the entire game. It wasn't because of his brilliance, it was just because of defense and special teams. That's what the Patriots hang their hat on. Bill Belichick has the Chargers number, and it frustrates the crap out of me. And I don't know if we'll ever beat him again in my life, but as you've heard in this podcast, we do not have a great time when we're going up against Bill Belichick. After this miserable defeat to the Patriots, the Chargers turn around and play the Atlanta Falcons. We find a way to win that game. We go play the Raiders, and this is a cool moment where Justin Herbert, in overtime, has a game-winning QB sneak. It was the I was in game. Herbert trying to plead his case to the referees that he was in the end zone, and it turns out he was. So that was a great moment for us. Got our spirits back up. We head over to the Broncos next week, and we take care of them. And then Chiefs are resting Mahomes on the last week of the year, and we beat the Chiefs in Arrowhead Stadium. That was a good win for confidence. Not enough to get in the playoffs, but it gave us hope that we need to head into the next year. Herbert started finding his groove. The team started winning some games. We finished with a 4-0 record in our last 4 games. 2020 offseason going into 2021, there was a key decision that was made. The front office of the LA Chargers decided to fire Anthony Lynn. This had been a long time coming. Not a surprise to Chargers fans, not a surprise to people familiar with the league. Anthony Lynn was not the fit for our team any longer. He did have a great season in 2018, but times have changed, and we needed a new coach going forward that's going to go along well with Justin Herbert and the things we're trying to accomplish. And most people at the time that Anthony Lynn was fired were expecting Brian Daboll of the Buffalo Bills to be that guy. He had experience coaching at Alabama with Nick Saban. He was an offensive mind, and he was very well received, I suppose, after the Bills had some success with Josh Allen that year. And I think most media outlets at this time were really hammering home the idea of Brian Daboll as like a great fit for the Chargers. I was on board with it, honestly. I heard great things about him, and I wanted an offensive guy to go along with Justin Herbert. But the Chargers doing what they do best, we don't release a lot of information before our decision is made. And we end up going with the young gun Brandon Staley, defensive coordinator of the Rams. He had coached Jalen Ramsey and Aaron Donald and a bunch of other talented guys. So I was excited to see what he could do with our defense. But another fun fact, he played quarterback in college. So he has a great offensive mind as well. And we were very excited to know that he's going to be able to help out on both sides of the ball. I do have to say, though, as highly touted as Brandon Staley was for his defensive excellence, that did not show itself much in the 2021 season. We were in a lot of shootouts. We were in a lot of high-scoring games. We allowed 42 points to the Browns. We allowed 34 to the Ravens, 37 to the Steelers, 34 to the Chiefs, 41 to the Texans. We let Davis Mills put up 41 on our temples, and we lost. That is embarrassing. That is something that should not happen. The Raiders, on the last week of the year, end up knocking us out of the playoffs. It's something I don't want to talk about. It's something I have PTSD from, that very last game of the year with the Raiders. It was really a game that the Chargers should have had no chance in being in, but Justin Herbert doing the things that he does gave us a chance. He did all he could, and so many people, this pisses me off, oh my goodness, so many people blame Justin Herbert for not making the playoffs in 2021. You take any quarterback in the NFL and you put them on that Chargers team, they are not making the playoffs with that special teams and that defense. I promise you. There is no other quarterback that could have lifted that team out of the dirt to make the playoffs. It was not Herbert's fault. It was not his wrongdoing. You can't expect him to suit up and play defense and suit up and be gunner on special teams. Those are the units that let us down, not the offense. Justin Herbert did everything he could. He does not deserve any of the blame for us missing the playoffs. And with that rant, we are brought up to present day. We are now at a time where the Chargers have positioned their roster well. We've done what we usually do. We make some nice acquisitions in the offseason. We make some flashy draft picks. Ooh, man, this guy's got some great potential. He'll fit in nicely with this unit. They have a lot of stars. They have a lot of young players. I've heard it all before, guys, and part of me is excited, but part of me just knows better than to get my hopes up. I want to see the product we put out on the field before I get comfortable with this unit. I want to see us grind out some close games, some wins. I want to see what the special teams can do. I want to see us take care of the football this year. But, man, we have all the pieces in place that we need. I'll tell you what, this offseason we fixed a lot of weaknesses. We brought in some new faces. We brought in J.C. Jackson at corner. A couple other places we upgraded. It's time to put our money where our mouth is. And we got to show up this season. We got to play the games. You know, you can speculate all day long. You can talk about which team has the best roster. You can talk about Madden ratings like I did last episode. But at the end of the day, it's what happens on the field that matters the most, not the acquisitions you make in the offseason. So I'm excited for this Chargers team coming up this year. I'm going to be watching every game. I'm going to be cheering. I'm going to be rooting. But guess what, guys? Given the history that I just shared with you, it's very possible that we disappoint once again. I hope this is not the case. I hope we can figure it out. But don't be surprised if we don't live up to the expectations. For those of you that stuck around for that complete breakdown and summary, you guys are now aware of some of the pain that I've gone through. You are now up to speed with some of the struggles the Chargers have had over the years. It's not an easy time being a Chargers fan in Iowa, let alone in LA or in San Diego. But you know what, man? I'm never going to give up on this team as long as we're rocking the lightning bolts, as long as we're putting on the powder blues on Sundays and we're called Chargers. You're going to find me somewhere cheering us on. I'm not going to move on anytime soon. I know this organization is putting me through everything that you could possibly do to get a fan to give up on the team, but guess what, guys? I'm not going anywhere. I'm not leaving! Now that that's been taken care of, we're going to head on over to the 4 topics that this podcast centers around. Once again, that is sports, finance, technology, and video games. Guys, we got to have some current updates in here. We're going to find some current events today. Let's find out what's cooking in each area. What's cooking in sports? San Francisco 49ers wide receiver Deebo Samuel recently signed a 3-year, $73 million deal. He will be returning to the Bay Area. I think this is a great move for the 49ers. You have a guy in Trey Lance that is going to take over most likely for Jimmy G this season. It's going to be his first real action under center. You want him to be as comfortable as possible. I know you have George Kittle there, who's going to be a great weapon for him. But having Deebo Samuel back as a weapon in the backfield and a weapon along the sidelines, this is a huge retention for the 49ers to keep him in town. This is going to be a very positive influence on the young quarterback. There was some speculation in the past few months that Deebo Samuel was unhappy with his role as the wide back, as they call it, which means you're playing wide receiver some snaps, you're playing running back some snaps, pretty much moving around on the offense wherever you're needed. Deebo was not allowed to comment on these claims while the contract negotiation was going on, but now that the deal is done, he came out and he addressed these rumblings, I guess. He shut them down completely. He said, I am willing to do whatever it takes for this team to succeed. That's what I like to hear from a receiver. That's what I like to hear for a franchise threat on the outside in the backfield. Deebo Samuel, well done. Moving from the NFC West over to the NFC East, let's talk about the Cowboys. They had a wide receiver recently, James Washington, who injured his foot in practice. This is bad, guys. This is not good. If you're a Cowboys fan, that depth chart is looking very thin on the outside. CeeDee Lamb is the only active, healthy wide receiver on the Cowboys who has a touchdown in an NFL game. That's not where you want to be with your receiving core. Dak is going to have to get creative this year. They're going to have to feed Zeke quite a bit. And I don't know what to tell you, Cowboy fans. This is not looking good. You're going to need to hit the free agency market, see who's out there, see who can bring in. Maybe a veteran is looking for a deal, a little prove-it situation. Not what you want to see as a Cowboy fan. If they would have kept Amari Cooper in town, maybe this wouldn't have been happening, guys. Gone are the days when you can afford to let a star receiver walk in free agency. The position has become much more important in recent years. You need to keep these guys in the building. You need to keep him in your franchise. When you find a star talent at receiver, do not let him go. You will pay the price. Boston Celtic legend and NBA Hall of Famer Bill Russell has unfortunately passed away. This guy was a winner, let me tell you. Let's go through his major victories in his career. 2-time NCAA champion at the college level. Then he moves to the NBA. Decides to suit up for USA, goes and wins an Olympic gold medal. Then he comes back, plays in the NBA. All he does in his 13 seasons, well, he's going to go ahead and win 11 NBA finals. That is insane, guys. We're probably not going to see that ever again. You can say what you want about the NBA at that point. I think there was only like 8 teams or something in the league. But guess what? He's still a champion. He's still a legend, an icon. Sad to see him go. This one is mind-blowing, guys. Get ready for this. Tiger Woods, one of the greatest golfers the sport has ever known, turns down over $700 million in an offer to join the LIV Golf Tour. He thinks that the Saudi Arabia-funded league is going against the tradition of the sport, and he was quoted saying that they are the players that are joining this league are turning their back on what allowed them to get to this position. And no one came here to listen to my political views, so I'm going to leave that out. But I will say about Tiger Woods, this was a big stand. He's taking a stand here. He's letting you know there's not a price tag on this man. He's going to keep his loyalty to the PGA Tour. And quite frankly, he doesn't need the money, so that's not a surprise there. But nonetheless, Tiger Woods not following the crowd, not joining on the cool move to join the LIV Tour. He's going to stick it out with the way he rose up the ranks. That's staying in the PGA Tour, and I have to respect it.
What's cooking in finance?
The United States just had our second consecutive quarter of negative GDP growth. And for those of you that don't know, GDP stands for Gross Domestic Product, which is pretty much a way of measuring the value of all the goods and services that are produced by your country. So the second consecutive quarter with negative GDP growth is typically the rule of thumb for an indicator of a recession. You can ask different people and get different answers of measuring a recession or the indicators that will lead to it. But if you look around, this is one of the most common measuring sticks, I guess you could say, for a recession. We've had 2 consecutive quarters now to start 2022 with negative GDP growth, but the White House needed to step in. They decided to release a press statement saying, guys, you've got it all wrong. This is not how we measure a recession. This has never been the way we measure a recession. We don't look for 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP growth. We factor in much more than just that. We look around at different indicators and we try to get a summary of all of these, and that will be our calculation for a recession. And for this criteria, it indicates currently that we are not in a recession. So all is okay. We're all good. You don't need to freak out. Everything's fine. And this is expected for the White House. We would expect them to want to downplay some of the financial troubles we've been experiencing. But if you're trying to tell me that 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP growth has never been an indicator, that's just outright false, because that has been the rule of thumb for a long time. That's been used by plenty of people. Maybe it's not your indicator, but it's definitely a indicator. The White House trying to beat around the bush sometimes. Sometimes they want to kind of redefine what it means to be in a recession, which really there isn't one tried and true definition. But the bottom line is inflation is very high. Interest rates are very high. We don't really see an end in sight. This is going to be a prolonged financial situation / conflict / recession.
What's cooking in technology?
This one hits close to home for me, guys. This one's pretty serious. The Cedar Rapids Community School District on July 2nd reported that they had a cyber attack against them. The district had not alerted parents or staff about this cyber attack until July 4th, which is 2 days later. At this point, they announced that the district would be shutting down for a week. I don't know what really caused them to delay the communication there, or they were just trying to evaluate the level of seriousness or the impact. I'm not sure, but it was reported that Washington High School, after the cyber attack, is still experiencing issues with their Wi-Fi and their local printing. Their staff were told to use hotspots from their mobile devices in order to connect to non-school devices. That's not good, guys. The entire network being down, mobile devices being used to start hotspots, this is a big deal. We're getting very little details released about the actual cyber attack, who's behind it, where they penetrated, if they're asking for ransom or anything like that. I'm expecting to hear more soon. I think the district said that they'll be kind of conducting more research about this and giving details to the public at a later point in time. But listen to this. The superintendent of the Cedar Rapids Community School District, Noreen Bush, likened the response from the staff to the cyber attack. She likened it to the responses from the staff to the 2008 flood, the COVID-19 pandemic, and the 2020 derecho. My goodness, those are some large conflicts. Those are some huge disasters to be comparing to. We sure hope this cyber attack isn't that serious. We sure hope that the district that I once attended can recover, and hopefully going forward they will be able to get into a partnership with some sort of cybersecurity group that can protect them from these sort of threats. With a digital world we're going into, cybersecurity should be at the forefront of our concerns. The Cedar Rapids Community School District learning this the hard way. Hopefully they will up their security going forward.
What's cooking in video games?
On July 25th, Elon Musk tweeted a very simple tweet, but also a very impactful tweet. He tweeted, "What video games have you enjoyed most over the past year or two?" I went through the replies for you guys so you don't have to. I'm going to talk about some of the most popular replies and some of the funniest replies I've seen in here. The first reply I saw was a person that had over 800 hours played in a game called Persona 5 Royal. I don't think I've ever came anywhere near to that many hours logged in one video game. I do remember back in the day playing Black Ops 1, one of my most favorite games of all time. I think I reached about 30 hours all time in that game, but keep in mind that's been out since 2010, and I played for probably a stretch of 10 years in that game, so logging 30 hours isn't very concerning in my opinion. I think this Persona 5 Royal game was released much more recently than 2010. 800 hours in one game, whew, I don't know about that, man. That's a little steep for me. Another popular response I saw was Red Dead Redemption 2. I've heard a lot about that game. Seems like it's something you can get out and adventure and look around and use weapons and play. And if you guys have any fun experiences on that, let me know. Is it worth getting? Who knows? I saw someone say Call of Duty Warzone until they got rid of the map Verdansk. I played Warzone a little bit back in the day, not as much as some of my friends. It's pretty fun. I don't really vibe with the Call of Duties of recent years as much as I used to, but Warzone's a cool concept for a game. A lot of players coming into battle at once, and kind of inspired by Fortnite, I guess. Well, if you want to take it back to the true inspiration, I would argue that it was inspired by Minecraft Hunger Games, the original Battle Royale. I remember playing that so much, man. Had a lot of fun memories on there, even though my Fujitsu Lifebook T series didn't get the best frame rate. The servers were very laggy, but I had a lot of fun playing Minecraft Hunger Games. Speaking of which, Minecraft was a reply in there. Love to see it. Gotta support the Minecraft grind always and forever. CSGO was a reply I saw to Elon's tweet. That's a very popular game. Also Destiny 2. Don't know much about those, but I know that I've heard a lot about them, so must be popular. Then I saw something interesting that someone did. They quote tweeted a previous Elon Musk tweet that was referencing video games, and it reads, "Elden Ring, experienced in its entirety, is the most beautiful art I have ever seen." I don't really have an experience with the video game Elden Ring, but if Elon is giving it this high of praise, I think it's worth checking out. Some of the graphics that we've seen in video games of this era simply going above and beyond what was previously conceived as possible. The graphics are always improving, and I'm very excited to see the artwork that Elon has highly touted in this tweet. Some of the funny replies now from some of the less serious Twitter users. Someone said, well, Elon's tweet reads, "What video games have you enjoyed the most over the past year or two?" Someone said, "Watching you play Twitter like a PlayStation." You gotta chuckle at that one. Elon's always stirring up something on Twitter. Another response I saw was, "Outside. It's the game where you go outside and live life." And someone replied to that tweet saying, "I heard that game only gives you one life." Very true. Only one life. But you got to use it wisely, man. You got to make sure you're doing all you can to get the most out of your one life. And on that note, that's going to be it from me, guys. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. We talked about the Chargers. We talked about some current events. I've been communicating with a few potential guests for next week. Might be a guest episode if we can fit it in. Might be another solo episode for me. You'll just have to wait and find out. We will see you next Wednesday.